In reality, those traversing the spiritual awakening journey are particularly susceptible to the emergence of the shadow self, as the ego, the light side of the shadow, loves to drape itself in robes of light and bliss, appearing special, untouchable, and enlightened. Alethea Luna, mindful shadow work, exercise for befriending your dark side, healing trauma, and finding joy. Thank you for joining us for our 21st episode of Sex, Drugs, and Spirituality, as we dive into the shadow side of spiritual practices and communities. Today, we are going to explore how spirituality, meant to enlighten and empower, can sometimes take a dark turn. But before we dive into our main topic, allow us a moment to introduce ourselves. I'm Jackie Lyons of Akashic Energy Healing.
And I'm Elizabeth Maria of Elizabeth Maria Unlimited. And together, we're the hosts of Sex, Drugs, and Spirituality, where we navigate the power of personal growth and self-discovery through exploration and acceptance of our shadow selves. So hello, everyone, and let's just get right into it today. Let's define toxic spirituality. So this is a phenomenon where spiritual beliefs and practices are misused or distorted, often leading to harm instead of healing. This can manifest in various ways, from the idea of spiritual bypassing, where individuals use spiritual beliefs to avoid dealing with their emotions or problems, to the exploitation of vulnerable individuals by charismatic leaders. One common aspect of toxic spirituality is the notion of spiritual superiority. This occurs when individuals believe that they are more enlightened or spiritually evolved than others. This can lead to judgment, exclusion, and even manipulation. So remember, spirituality should foster compassion and connection, not elitism and division. So here is some real world examples from the website imindspirit.com, and this is 5 traits of toxic spirituality. So the first one that I will talk about is called it's pushing spirituality on others. And let me tell you that at the beginning of my awakening, I definitely am guilty of this one. So you can't force someone to be spiritual. Spiritual endeavors are generally born from just your own natural curiosity, the quest for self-improvement, or some life-altering event. So pushing spiritual practices on others can be harmful, actually. And not only does it scream superiority complex and is met with criticism and confusion, but it can actually confuse others that are on their own spiritual journey, but maybe haven't seen what you have seen, right? And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. The next one is the idea of toxic positivity. And I have definitely been accused of being this. So you might see creators on social media preaching about how positivity is the key to changing your life, right? But this doesn't, of course, take into account trauma, past events, or your present circumstances, right? And so we're all living different phases in our life and are faced with all kinds of different challenges every day. And sometimes, being positive all of the time is just not realistic. So, and again, we'll get into conversating about these in a minute. The third one is ignoring or suppressing negative emotions. So we are here for the human experience, right? And we aren't meant to be in this constant state of bliss, right? I mean, we have, darker, denser emotions for a reason, right? It's a part of the experience. So without the ebb and flow of struggle and success, happiness and unhappiness, love and loss, we could really, just be like robotic and feelingless, right? It's all a part of it. So suppressing your emotions to feign this sense of positive energy, it only leads to detrimental health effects. The fourth is spiritual gaslighting. So this is also something that I had to go through as well. Using spirituality as an excuse for any outlandish behavior. This is a type of spiritual gaslighting, guys. Okay. People often use spirituality as a means to avoid accepting personal responsibility for their actions and their circumstances in life. So this is really, this idea is like spiritual bypassing. It's where we're literally avoiding dealing with the issues in our lives, right? In our, everyday 3D world. And we're just going to leave it all up to the universe, right? Though letting go and easing anxiety is a positive, it's not an excuse to just totally detach from the quote unquote real world. Okay. The fifth is this idea of cult culture. So spirituality is about seeking answers from within. And you don't need a guide to do that, right? Everything is an inside job, an inside job, an inside job. And there are spiritual, like me, like I'm an intuitive guide, but I don't say I can heal anyone. That is what you do, right? Sometimes it's just good to have some exterior guidance to get you back in the right track. And like I always say, it takes a village, takes a village. I mean, I've got guides and therapists and oh my, all kinds of people helping me out. But yeah, so and also with any type of spiritual community, right? If this community is like selling something, is really pushy about what they're selling, is gaining in popularity based on saying that their product can heal you or whatever, or they're trying for, any type of sexual encounters or other types of, intimate adoration from its followers, then chances are, folks, there's something afoot, right? Something doesn't feel quite right. Yes. So though, some of these organizations, these different, quote unquote, spiritual communities may have started out with good intentions. With great power can come great toxicity. Okay. It's like the idea of what is it like absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So be wary of any place with a defined, and I'm going to put that in quotes, defined leader, right? That's really a top down model. That's patriarchy. And no offense towards those that are in those types of organizations, but I mean, that structure is a crumbling.
It's an outdated structure to believe that one person will be leading a group and they should have that much control without, I guess, the, I don't know, observance of others. And I believe that to be so true. I'd be like, no, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's really, and actually, it's interesting because when I found these traits on imindspirit.com, and when I was reading through them, I really like a lot of them at the beginning of my awakening, especially like the first one, like pushing spirituality on others. I remember I was dating this guy, and I mean, he was super sweet, super sweet. But man, I mean, as like one of my spiritual buddies said, I took him from zero to aliens in like, maybe.
The first two really sat with me as well.
Yeah. And I'm like, and he got so freaked out that he literally, like, I was playing this video for him from, about like, I don't know, some channeled message or something. And he literally put his hands over his ears because it scared him and he wasn't ready to see.
Oh,
And
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like not everyone, I mean, and it's not a linear progression through, a spiritual awakening. And some people see some things and some people see other things, and no, not what one person sees is the
Yeah.
right way to see it. You know what I mean?
True. And I think the toxic positivity really stuck with me because that is something that I used as a way to kind of dissociate from maybe what was really going on in the third dimension and kind of live in this positive bubble, as opposed to just seeing a situation and the value that the challenges had, that, what they were going to teach me for that. And I kind of lived in that, even though I wasn't actually being that positive, but like the persona of it was there for sure.
Absolutely. And I was definitely accused of this, especially at the beginning. Oh, she's just being was it positive Pollyanna or whatever. And I am just a glass half full kind of gal. But I did see further on in my spiritual awakening that I was using that as a way to, which really moves us into the third one, suppressing that negative emotion, and we've talked about in the past, I mean, on past episodes, what happens when you're suppressing these emotions. I mean, they're just going to come out sideways, or when they do come up, they're going to come up even funkier, stronger.
It's a rude awakening to see how we've been able to kind of numb those emotions and detach, exactly like it said there, detach from it. And we kind of live in that bubble where it's comfortable and we really don't even know we're doing it until after we've come out of it. And the realization of the behavior that led to us doing that, it's been shocking in a way. And you really have to have a light heart to yourself, because it wasn't a conscious behavior, but now
Right.
it's been brought into the awareness of consciousness, and you get that beautiful chance to make new choices. And it's such a powerful place, but it really does deserve a little introspection in and of itself. And
Yeah.
that's what I love about the journey, because you're right, at the beginning I really wanted everybody to see the things that I saw in the spiritual way, and how beautifully the universe was speaking to us, and not everybody was ready, especially my partner and at the time. And I kind of really pushed it on him more than he was ready to take on as well. But I think I learned pretty early on that I have to meet people with a little bit of curiosity, right? You got to, in my case, tip their curiosity at the level that they're ready to receive it, and then hope that that will move forward. But it did take a little bit of back and forth and crazy side eye glances before I made it there. So,
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
great
Yeah.
tips, and thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. And I did want to, before we move on, just, this whole idea of the cult culture. I have not, kind of fallen into this type of manipulation, but I have two friends that shared experiences with me. One, it was a guy that she met online who was like some kind of like spiritual master, and really coerced her into having intimate relationship with her. And then another one who actually lived on a property with, this type of charismatic leader. And it was also some kind of weird sex stuff going on. And so, really be careful out here on these spiritual streets, guys, because
I believe that too. Anybody who is trying to get you to look outside of yourself for answers is not the one. And I will say that straight up. The time to follow outside sources as opposed to our own inner work and our inner self, it's wrong. That is
yeah,
wrong. That's a clear red flag in my
yes,
book. So just
huge,
take that into consideration.
yes, yes,
Because yes, vulnerable people fall victim to people who they have a ability to pick out the vulnerable. They're
yes.
master manipulators, and if they have actually had an awakening and then turned into this toxic spirituality later on by not being humble enough or having the right support system to keep them grounded, then they do actually have this higher level of awareness, and they can use that to truly cause real harm, like Elizabeth said, to some of her own personal friends. um, but I do want to kind of move on. with another troubling trend that is the commercialization of spirituality. And this includes expensive retreats to overpriced crystals, fake crystals too. And capitalism has seeped into the spiritual realm, turning profound practices into consumerist commodities. And not only does this exclude those who can't afford these luxuries, but it also distorts the true essence of spirituality, which is, like we said, about inner growth and connection. And it's not about materialism. And we did some research on some of the most popular retreats that the costs are staggering. And I don't want to speak to any business in and of itself, but the prices can range like to ridiculous amounts, from $540 to gosh, like $22,000, depending on where and when and how you want to stay. But I mean, I don't think that, like, us as people, we have the ability, if we have the money and we want to spend $22,000 on a retreat because they offer, you know, real nice beds and this, that, and the other, and you want it to be 5-star, sure. Is the people there that work there better than the guy at the $1,500 a week retreat? I don't think so. And right. I kind of just as well use my intuition. If I had $22,000 and I want to be luxuried up, and great, but you have to take what people say, in my opinion, at face value. Does it resonate for you? Take it back in. Like we said, these people don't know better than you. They might be further along on their journey, different experience. They can offer great value. I've received great value. But it doesn't mean I'm going to turn my whole life around and follow them and everything, chase them on different retreats. I mean, we really have to use our own personal judgment on how we allow information from practitioners in this business, because there is no, I guess, affiliated certificate that everybody can have that will show you that they're better or they're worth for you. It has to be you to make that decision. And that's kind of what I wanted to point out on there. But I've had some great abilities to have a scaled retreat at a discounted price, and it was truly amazing for me in my journey. And I will be on this $22,000 retreat at some point.
Yeah, you and me will be there together, darling.
Yeah, if I want to.
Yes,
I'll make that choice consciously. Like, they're not ripping me off if I agree to pay it. That's free will, guys. So exactly. We can choose the lesser if we chose to. So please.
Right. And it's not even about it being like, because, you know, money it's an exchange of value. And so wherever you're at and you know what I mean? It's all good. But just like, you know, equating like it being better somehow, that to me is really the issue. I mean, for, you know, like in my own, no, because it doesn't. I mean, I have, you know, definitely found, I mean, I've done some retreats as well. And, you know, the last one that I did was, I think it was like $50 a night. I mean, I was actually working there, you know, doing my intuitive guidance, which as a side note, I do as well. I do retreats, and I actually just did a 50th birthday party, which was so fun. But, you know, like, this retreat that I went on was, I mean, like the women were paying like $50 a night. Now, does that mean that that's a less retreat than one that's, you know, $8,000 a night? Absolutely not. It's like one, just like where you resonate, what, you know what I mean? And so, you know, and I will say that in the most of the retreats that we researched for this, that a lot of them did do sliding scale, which I think is very innovative and forward thinking. But Jackie, I wanted to hear a little bit more about these. You were talking about like the fake crystals, because I know that the overpriced crystals are definitely a thing, but I hadn't heard too much about.
Oh yeah, there's those discount stores online, and they sell them like, and you should probably already know this, they're very cheap. Right. If you're like, I mean, there is some people who overprice them and then they're coming at real cheap, and you guys, they don't sell crystals for like dollars.
Right.
And a lot of these things are coming from third world countries. They're mass producing them. The legitimacy of it, I can't guarantee. I don't, you know, have all the tests for crystals, but I mean, there are some red flags to just look out for right away. And that's kind of the common one. And, you know, maybe if you're buying, say, large orders for like a store or something, you should probably buy a couple times just to make sure. a smaller order has real crystals, and there are usually it's the weight, and it can feel plasticky in some senses. There are, if you follow TikTok and stuff, you can Google it. People have tests for different crystals that will be able to tell you for sure if it is. But I don't have that off the top of my head. But yeah.
Let me tell you that that's really interesting, because while you were talking, I was thinking about two different spiritual shops that I've gone to, like in the last couple of years. And one of them, because I feel the energy of crystals when I'm near them, I can feel that energy. And so one shop that I went into, I did not feel the energy when I got close to the crystal section. Whereas this, I went to one like last weekend, and my God, as soon as I got close to those crystals, I mean, my whole body was just like tingling, you know? And
yeah,
so,
for someone like you, definitely that would be a telltale sign. I would trust that 100%.
absolutely. And so, you know, friends, like and I also was thinking that, you know, for me, when I'm buying crystals, and I know everyone loves online shopping, but I like to get up close and personal with them. I want to pick them up and, you know, I mean, I'll whisper sweet nothings, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so,
Hi, baby.
you know, just
Sparkle. You're looking
so
sparkly today.
yeah. So but I do agree, Jackie, that if you are like, you know, a shop and you're buying them bulk online or whatever, get it like a small order first, just to kind of, you know, check.
I mean, everywhere you turn these days is a scam. So there has to be some things that just show up in your mind, and you have to start thinking like, why? Like, why would this be so cheap? Like, nothing today is this cheap. That's the sign. Like, I mean,
Exactly. And, you know, and I mean, there's quality does not have to be like stupidly expensive, but also like Jackie was saying, like, I mean, if you're, you know, finding freaking like, you know, obsidian or amethyst.
yeah, like get a moldavite for $10.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, no.
Yeah, that's a sign, guys. So let's move on, and let's not forget the dark side of spiritual communities. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but we're going to go a little bit more in detail. So while these spaces can offer support and belonging, they can also become breeding grounds for groupthink, manipulation, and even abuse. So when leaders or members are idolized or given unquestioned authority, it creates a power dynamic ripe for exploitation. So it is crucial, guys, to cultivate discernment and autonomy within spiritual communities to prevent these kinds of abuses. So the real world example that we research is the, you know, probably the most quintessential of spiritual communities gone bad, the Jim Jones, right? So for those of you that are not familiar, I'll just give you a real quick rundown. Jim Jones, he was an American cult leader, and he basically promised his followers utopia in the jungles of, they were in Guyana, South America. And he started running this, he called it the People's Temple, and it was in San Francisco, and this was like in the 1960s. So it really went in alignment with like the whole counterculture movement, you know. I call it the Cultural Revolution, you know, the 1960s and 70s. And so he gained just widespread fame within, you know, his community. And he had a huge following, right? And so he ultimately led his followers into a mass suicide. It left over 900 dead, and it came to be known as the Jonestown Massacre. And what he did was he basically commanded all of his followers to drink cyanide laced punch. Right. And now some of them refused to drink it and got away, but over 900 of them died, including like over 300 that were under the age of 18. And so this is just, it was a travesty. And I think that this example is really what, has given any type of spiritual community a pretty, like people automatically
Yeah,
like,
this is like the worst example
Right,
of where
right.
this can go. And there was a few that kind of hit this level, but we don't want to leave too much into that. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so just some traits of toxic spiritual leaders. So if you are someone that is a part of a spiritual community, we're not saying that it can be a really beautiful thing, but here are some traits of toxic spiritual leaders. Okay. So unaccountability, right? Manipulation of any form, lack of empathy, a constant need for control. Okay. Someone that is ego driven. So, it's their idea or the highway, right? They're very resistant to any kind of feedback. Okay. The community is isolated. Any type of lack of transparency, any form of spiritual superiority, like, oh, I know because I am so, evolved. Any type of inconsistency. So, playing favorites and that kind of energy. And also fear tactics. So any kind of bullying, right? And then, if this person who is usually very charismatic is, dismissing of your boundaries on any level, you are more than likely talking to a toxic spiritual leader. Okay, guys. So, yeah.
Great. Yep, I agree. And I guess we want to now move towards how we can kind of navigate these dark spiritual streets. So, first, we want to point out that it's essential to approach spirituality with a crucial eye and a discerning mind, and question beliefs and practices that don't resonate with our personal inner truth. We can't be afraid to seek guidance outside of our immediate spiritual community. And I myself surround myself with people who are open-minded, lovely, amazing people, but they're not necessarily on the same path as me. And it keeps me in a place of feeling humble and grounded and still connected to the community, because there are times where my own mind can feel like a very scary place to be at times. And it's important that I have surrounded myself with people who have varying values and beliefs to kind of hone that in. And that's personal for me. But second, I want to really prioritize your inner work over external validation. True spirituality is about deepening our understanding to ourselves and the world. And it's not about chasing after fleeting experiences or status symbols. Please remember that the most profound insights often arise in moments of humility and vulnerability, and they're not grandiosity. And yeah, I think this is, I don't know, really true in my personal experience.
150%. I mean, I really believe that, and again, like I have, gone on spiritual retreats. I've been, in communion and spiritual community before, and some of the most profound insights from my own spiritual journey all of them come from the inner work, but, have been when, I am just like literally like walking around at a park, what I mean? Like, honestly, most of my most deeply okay, I'll tell y'all a quick story. When I started on my spiritual journey, like the accelerated part, I was, because I love to walk, so I was speed walking in this park in Griffin, Georgia, and I'm speed walking, and man, I was like high on life, and I was feeling the energy of the elementals, of the giants. Because there's a lot of giants in Georgia, and And I just was going, and I'm like talking to myself because I'm a little cray cray, and I'm good with that. And so I see this patch of clover, right? And so without even thinking about it, I just walk over to this patch of clover. I look down and I'm like, and I see a 4-leaf clover. I bend down and I look at it, and then I just kind of was about to go on my merry way again. But then I saw the 4-leaf clover. Now, folks, let me tell you that this is the only time in my life that I've been able to pick up, that I've been able to find a 4-leaf clover. And as soon as I picked it, because I picked that, I think it's in one of my Bibles, but I said to myself, when you find it when you stop looking. And I knew that was a huge spiritual experience for me, because let me tell you, when my daughter was little, man, she used to find freaking 4-leaf clovers everywhere, and I got a little jelly, like, what the hell, what's wrong with me? And so I knew that it was such a profound thing. And I was just walking in a park, so
Well, and for me, I've
yeah.
never really been a fan girl. Like, I'm not even like music that I love. I'll love one song, but I'm not going to then go research that person and know everything about them. Like, I've just never been like that. I find that things happen to pop up into my awareness when I need them. And it's right for me at the time, but I don't have to then obsess about every piece of work that this artist put out and the content that they do, that their truth is the only one that matters. And all of a sudden I believe everything, you know what I mean? I take that, like, and I know it's played out, but I do honestly take what is meant for me and I leave what doesn't make sense. And I continue to bring it back in. It's all about our inner journey. And if anybody tells you different, it's not true. Your journey is your journey to ascension. It's your life lessons, your choices, your karma. It's not the guy that already made it and that's sitting on the fucking mountain in his meditative state because he's reached enlightenment. His journey led him there. Your journey might not lead there. So that's my stress.
Amen. Woman.
Stressor of anybody who says different.
Yes. So, guys, let's foster a culture of accountability within any type of spiritual community that you find yourself in. Okay, so this means holding leaders and communities accountable for their actions, addressing harm when it occurs, and also creating structures that promote transparency and consent, right? So by dismantling any type of toxic dynamic that you may see and fostering a culture of respect and integrity, we can create spiritual spaces that truly nourish and empower all of us, guys. All of us,
I love it. And we are building a community like that. And we have so much that we will share with all of you guys in the future, but it's not meant for your ears yet. But this is, and I know that we can come together to create a community that does empower us all. And I don't know if we should say more or just leave it there. What do you think, Elizabeth? That's it? Thank you guys all for joining us today as we unveil toxic spirituality. And remember, true spirituality is not about escaping reality. It is about embracing it fully. All the shadows and all the darkness and all. So stay curious and stay cautious. And remember that healing comes from within, not only from overly experienced coaches or retreats. So if you guys have any questions or topics for us to explore in our show or anything else concerning our podcast, contact us at sexdrugsandspiritualitypodcast@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to contact us about our individual client offerings, please follow the link below and be sure to mention that you heard about us on Spotify. And we look forward to connecting with our spiritual community at 11 p.m. EST every Saturday on Spotify to explore and integrate the shadow side of our reality.
Love and
Love
light.
and light, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Sex, Drugs, and Spirituality Podcast. Elizabeth Maria, Unlimited LLC. And Jackie Lyons of Akashic Energy Healing is not responsible nor liable for any advice, course of treatment, diagnosis, or any other information, services, or products that you obtain through this website.